Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
I'm in a blob of green lava lamps.
We all are.
Are you vibing?
We'll talk about some vibe coding later.
Okay. It's me, Ladyada, vibe coder extraordinaire. With me, Mr. Ladyada on camera control and doing mic stuff. And we got an exciting, really packed show for you tonight.
It's a big show.
Strap in, get a snack, use the restroom because you're going to hear it.
Yeah.
We have a big show. So let's get right into it. What are we going to talk about on Ask Engineer tonight?
On tonight's show, the code is PS RAM. You'll see why soon. We have a special new product that'll be the star of the show, but the code is PS RAM. Show and tell just happened. Thank you so much, JP. I glanced over. Looks like it was an awesome show and tell.
It was packed.
I will take a look at that very soon, as soon as we get off air. We'll do our highlights from Desk of Ladyada, including the great search. We'll do JP's product pick of the week. We have a very special mailbag. If you're a fan of the show Severance, you probably saw this device, amongst other devices and cool things that they have, including like very nice design and props and more. So we'll talk about that one. Got some open source hardware news where I follow up and conclude my story about Arduino and the latest open source report. Going to do some 3D printing videos, including our new segment Rapid Render, where we look at all the tools to automate the ways that you can make some 3D models. We got INPI, new product introduction, brought to you by DigiKey. This week it is ISSI. We've got new products. We got top secret. We answer your questions that you give us throughout the week, or you can put them in the chat, your call. The chat is adafruit.it/discord or discord.gg/adafruit. All that and more on, you guessed it, Ask an Engineer.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to go through these super duper fast. You get 10% off, but you also get free stuff.
Freebies.
As you load up your cart.
$99 or more, you get a coaster.
Yeah, or you get a
$149 or more, you get a RP2040 key. I haven't designed the RP2350 version.
Or free UPS.
You get this baby.
Yeah, this baby is delivered to you. This is UPS's new campaign. Baby.
Yep.
No, this is they have costumes every year. UPS has a cool thing. Our kid has one, so this is not our kid. This is I don't know, someone else's kid. And then we also do same day delivery. It's a nice kid and everything. I'm sure they're like.
I'm sure they're great.
They're probably like 20 years old now. This is a little photo. So same day delivery in New York City. Just order before 11 a.m. From the Desk of Ladyada, you did a couple things. It's 2 segments. The first part was what? What did you show? What did you share?
Okay, so I redesigned.
I think it was a G.
Yeah, we did the TLV 320 DAC 3100 revision, and I showed that off. Yeah. I also showed off the tripler bonnet, which will show it's not out yet. This is designed for a triple output matrix bonnet that will use the Raspberry Pi 5 PIO stuff that Jepler was working on. And also, I've been finishing up a design with the U-Blocks GPS, the Max M8Q. And then on the Great Search, I looked to see if there's any other GPS modules from U-Blocks I should use, and I found one. It's the M10Q. Turns out they have a better version with like a third the power usage. So yeah, that's coming next.
Alrighty, and then every single week on Tuesday we do JP's product pick of the week. Here's this week's highlight.
Hey look, that's the product pick of the week this week. It is the BQ25-185 5-volt boost board. 6-volt panel. I can just put this outside and charge up the battery from it. I am charging it right now off of USB-C. I can unplug that and you'll notice that I'm still running power 5 volts boosted from the battery out to whatever I've got plugged into USB. This is just a little USB-C breakout that I have wired into the little screw terminals there. And then you can see my input side on V-in and ground is coming from the solar panel there. And then what I'm running off of it, actually, just for convenience, I put a small little USB-C to USB-A hub on the side here. And I have one of these very bright little LED rings that are great for doing some little local illumination. There is my product pick of the week this week. It is the BQ25-185 5-volt boost board.
Alrighty, don't forget tomorrow is JP's workshop where you'll see all this and more. 3D Hangouts is on Wednesday where you can learn how to make all the things that you'll probably see in the 3D printing segment we have upcoming, including Rapid Render. We'll play a clip from that. And then on Friday, it's Deep Dive with Tim. That's this week. Let's do some mailbag. This mailbag's going to be a little different because there's a very popular show. It's called Severance. Ben Stiller's involved, but he's not in the show. Everybody seems to love the show, and every week they're like, "Look, this amazing design! It has like this, that, another thing." And so this is, I think it was on recently.
It's a woe meter, which is like an e-meter-esque.
Yeah. So this is season 2,
thing.
episode 7, and you know, we started getting all these emails and tweets and zoots and zeeps and garfors and. This is just one amongst many. So Dexter over on, I think this was Blue Sky, said, great breakdown of the new woe meter from the latest Severance episode and how it was built. So make3.co/work/woe meter. And they noticed that there was a lot of Adafruit stuff in there. And then the company that does amazing props, they said, we love Adafruit, quick iteration and quick deployment.
I think they put the Lumon logo on the PCB.
Yeah, so they made a custom PCB. And I think one of the cool things about the show, and someone just said in the chat what I was about to say is, someone saw this in the show and they're like, I wonder if I could make that. You absolutely can. And
you definitely can, because it's made with Adafruit parts that we sell.
Yeah. And I also thought this was neat because people in the industry rarely show how they build stuff. So we get emails all the time. It's like, hey, in the following movies, all of your stuff is in it, but I can't tell you that I work on it.
And there's no proof, like we can't see it.
And it's inside. So pretty much every major movie that has any electronics in it has Adafruit stuff, and I'm willing to say that because that's the emails that we get. But they're like, please tell Ladyada her stuff's in there. We love it. We just can't, you know, we can't say anything about it.
I like that they showed off the internet. And what's another thing that's interesting is I was wondering, you know, why in the photos they have an ESP32 like S3 or S2 with antenna, and I was like, with a WFL antenna, and I'm like, well, you wouldn't use a WFL antenna unless you were using the Wi-Fi. And I was like, why would you use the Wi-Fi? And if on another page they actually mentioned they use ESP now and they have a little controller for their props, because a lot of times, like, you need, like, instead of having like some pre-programmed thing, they actually tweak the outputs remotely. So like, you know, the meter like does this wiggle thing and then maybe the lights light up or whatever. Like, they don't want the knobs to actually do anything. They want it, like, try to explain this, but like a lot of props are like really faked. Like, my favorite example is somebody who was like, oh, I want a prop where when somebody, like a dancer jumps through the ring lights up, like, you know, with the LEDs in the ring lights up. And somebody's like, oh, how did you detect the person when they jump through the ring? And you know that exactly da-da-da, and like the sensing. And somebody's like, no, there's a guy watching the dancer. And when the dancer jumps through the ring, they press a button on like a, you know, wireless DMX controller and it lights up the lights. So they actually, you know, the motor controllers for like the, they have, I think, automotive gauges is what they use.
Guess what? They showed everything. So on their website, make3.co, you can see their work. And so they have
they
this other thing.
yeah,
By the way, they have another thing. This is a cool controller.
Right. And it uses ESP Now. And so it's smart. Is they're like, oh, instead of trying to like make the prop do exactly what like they might need to do from take to take, they just have it remotely controlled, and then like some guy sits there and just tweaks the knob to make it look like the prop is reacting to the buttons and knobs that the actor is doing. And I'm like, this is the correct way to do it.
This is great.
And what's smart is they use ESP Now, not Wi-Fi, because they know that Wi-Fi Bluetooth is flaky.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's funny that you say that. So the first thing on here, they're like, you could just tell they know what they're doing. They're just like, okay, we have to overcome the challenges of reliable wireless control on a set. And they're just like, we got to.
Which is like the brightest lights. Everyone's got like remote control shit. There's just like so much electrical noise happening on set.
Yeah, David mentioned it. So this is really neat. So this is a cool company, cool people, and it's neat that they could share this. And like many people who watch this show, they're probably into technology some way. They're like, oh, I could probably make this.
Yeah.
And as someone mentioned in the chat, prop puppetry. So we have the prop maker, but now that we see how people are really using these things, we might make a board that would be like a prop puppet that would like help you do this even more. Because when they share this, it's like, oh, look at all these things they did to allow this. Like maybe we could do something like this.
And they only had 6 weeks to build it.
I love that they made the PCB with lumen and woe meter. This belongs in a television history museum.
So cool.
Because it's a public example.
And look at how well documented it is.
Yeah,
like
they did a great job. It's a public example of what open source hardware can do for film, entertainment, industry, and more.
Yeah.
And when people say like, oh, why do you open source hardware? It's like, because you can do stuff like this, and tell amazing magical stories, or completely weird, depressing stories, or whatever you want. I don't know what the vibe is on Severance. I've tuned in a couple of times. I think it's kind of funny, but we'll see. Plot twist can happen. But thank you for sending that in. We very much appreciate it. All right, we're gonna zip right along. So Python on hardware news, we got like one big thing this week that I wanted to talk about. So congratulations, mostly Anne, but the entire team. Every week we work really hard on the Python on Microcontrollers newsletter, and we're up to 12,000 subscribers. Now you have to go to Adafruit Daily. It's not connected to your store account anyway. You have to go to Adafruit Daily.
You have to 6 puzzles.
No, we don't spam, and we kind of make it hard to sign up because we don't want to ever be accused of spamming anyone. We don't use their store account information. This is a completely separate website, and we spend a lot of time on it. It's on GitHub. It's an RSS feed. It's a blog post. You don't even need to sign up as a newsletter. So we're really proud that we were able to do something that didn't, violate your privacy, do all sorts of bad things just to get a newsletter out. There's no advertising in it either. So this is cool. This is the place. And there's so many things that are in it besides Python on hardware. It is becoming a bigger overview of what's going on in, I'd say, just programming. And there's a lot of Python. So if you look like one of the lead stories, resource for learning embedded systems, our stuff is in there. But then Claude 3.7 and Claude Code, Anne wrote about this. And one of the things that we decided to post about was here's a 27-year-old exe file, and Claude reverse engineered it and rewrote it in Python. There's some caveats with that, by the way. And then Ladyada showed how she uses these tools to automate getting the data out of a PDF, a data sheet, and then turning it into a driver. So anyways, do check it out. I think this is central to any time, any place someone is looking to do something on hardware. Because CircuitPython and MicroPython and Python's a big part of it. This is
what's interesting today. Like, so GPT-3, like people are like, let's use GPT-3, and I was like, do not use GPT-3. I was like, it's close, but it's like it lies way too much. But Claude Sonnet writes pretty good code.
Yeah, I'll say.
Not, I think I would actually tell people like, yeah, try, for your first pass, if you don't want to write the code, try Claude. You never know.
Yeah, we have new boards. Yeah, we have the new boards in here. And I think that one of the things, getting back to your AI thing, I think that just to put it out there, the way Limor is using these AI tools is different than I see how everyone's talking about them. So a lot of the code is trained on her code, and she's a computer scientist. So the way she's interacting with it is very different and unique. So that's why we've been documenting it for like a couple of years. So all the AI doomers need to just like look at how we're doing it before you say this is the worst thing in the world. It's not. There are other things that are worse.
It's too late.
Yeah. But generally speaking, though, like take a look at how she's using it with her code as a extension of her abilities in a autocomplete way. Wish they wouldn't call it LLM.
I just I just feel like my wrists, like I've always had like not carpal tunnel, but I always feel like I'm kind of getting to the edge of it, and it's like I don't have it anymore. It's great.
So all this and more on Adafruit Daily. Like I said, it's delivered every week.
In your inbox.
All righty. So
no ads.
Here we go. Some open source hardware news. It's time to talk about Arduino. So last week,
I'm just gonna go to the restroom.
Yeah. So last week I said, okay, I'm going to email the Arduino team, the people I know there, because the open source report that Arduino puts out every year just came out, and I had questions. Usually I have questions each year. I'm like, hey, I'm going to write this up. I want to make sure I get everything right. This year is a little different, and just to give you some context, I've been writing about Arduino for 20 years. Arduino is celebrating 20 years. I think it's a little less than 20, but like it's close enough. This is us in our apartment with the entire Arduino team. A lot has changed. One of them is not in the Arduino team anymore.
We don't talk about
Laura has pink hair. A lot has happened, but we've been following the story when I was at Make, even when I was at Hackaday.
I still have that hoodie though.
You do. But I'm kind of stuck with this beat, and this beat is stuck with me. And then the other thing is what Arduino says publicly is important to all the developers out there who spend a lot of time on Arduino stuff. Specifically, Arduino says, hey, this is, by the way, this is like not even the most recent one. Since March 2015, 10 years ago, there's 30 million downloads of the IDE. It's even more. I'm sure it's like, it might even be double now. Who knows? We'll find out on Arduino Day. But some stuff came up in this open source report, and I alerted the Arduino team. They made a change so far, but I'm going to encourage them and all of us to think about like what's happening. Something's up. So previous years, Arduino would let the community know how many downloads of specific libraries there are. That was helpful for us because we would know to maintain it, to spend more time on it. And we had 4 of the top 10 ones for a while: Circuit Playground, the DHT sensor library, Adafruit graphics library, Adafruit NeoPixel, and like we have a style. You can see Adafruit_NeoPixel, and these are open source libraries. You can use these for anything you want. Commercial use is totally okay. All you have to do is credit us. And what had happened was I downloaded the latest report and I saw, that's weird. This says the top contributor, who I've never heard of before, was iArduino.
Because some of the contributors, I'm like, oh yeah, this person, I know them.
Yeah.
They write lots
of years, it's like, yeah, I see SparkFun in there. I see, Pololu in there. So, okay. And then in the most active library maintainers, iArduino, I first thought that this was Arduino and this was one of their efforts. I was like, oh, this must be something they're doing. I was wrong. This has nothing to do with Arduino. And let me just zoom in on these just so you can see it. So in calendar year 2024, new libraries added. So they did the most libraries in 2024. And then the maintainers, they're like number 4, I think, of the most active maintainers. But when you look at what our iArduino is, all things lead to a Russian web store, which is fine. You could put it in there, but they did some things that are not okay with how open source hardware.
This looks like official Arduinos.
There's not. Those aren't official Arduinos. Yeah, and they're using the trademark iArduino for the library name, and they're using iArduino.ru as the store name. You're not allowed to do that.
Guys, we went through this already. Don't let people use the trademark.
So that's up to Arduino, but Arduino.
I don't want to deal with Russian Musto.
Well, this is like a terrible Nintendo game.
I don't want to.
Gotcha. He has a little disgust.
New Game Plus. I don't want.
This is so insider baseball. So I'll show the article in a second. So I just did a very terse, short article because I don't want to. I lifted up a rock and there's creepy crawlies underneath. Yeah. I'm like, no. So, anyways, you can't make a website and call it like iDisney. Like, go ahead, try. You can't. So Arduino can do something about this. They could say, hey, don't call yourself iArduino. If you do, you can't be in the Arduino library manager. They can do that. That's up to them to do. They also have trademark lawyers. They have all this stuff. If it's important to them, they should deal with it. Their company was cracked in half because of a trademark before. I think they should do it. This is just like friendly advice. And this is someone I like Arduino. I know that Arduino probably doesn't like when I send these things over to them. So here's where it gets not great. Like this is like the part that's not good. This entity iArduino, and to give Arduino credit, I told them about this and they said, okay, it's actually another account because iArduino on GitHub hasn't posted any code since 2017. Ugh, weird. But when you download what our iArduino did, you see something that's not great for open source. Here's the iArduino underscore NeoPixel. And oh, who owns this? Who owns this? Who wrote it? Oh, it's copyright 2019 iArduino.ru. And if you look at it,
Doubt that. No,
there's no Adafruit mention. There's no library folks who we worked with. Their names are taken off, and then the license is not even a real open source license. So right now, the most amount of new code and libraries
permitted. I don't believe you're permitted to have
Yeah.
non-open source licenses.
No, you can't. You can't. And I told Arduino, and I gave them over a week to respond to like, hey, do you need more time? Is there any? Can you look into this? And so I have an article. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. Here's the report, and they said, okay, fine. Trema.ru is the other account, and they're number one. So they updated to say this Russian. So if you go to trema.ru, it just goes to this thing that goes. Eventually, it goes to iArduino.ru. So this is misleading. There's no official connection with Arduino. I emailed the open source director. The mail bounced. They're no longer with Arduino, so I don't know what's going on there. There's no replacement for them that I know of. Their chief product officer did look at this, and you can see that they have a different account for this Arduino.ru thing. They said if I want to, I could do a deep dive, or I can send DMCAs to GitHub. I think that Arduino should do due diligence, especially after they've been notified. And if it's a license like this, that's not good. If it's a license or a text file that says license and it takes Lamore's name off, and then they're just translated and all uploaded, now they're the number one contributor, that sucks for everyone else who does Arduino code. Because at any time, no one will help you if this happens to you. And Arduino could just, like, they could press one or multiple, like Control X or something. They can press a button and get rid of this, or they can warn them. So that's the first part. And the other part of the Arduino report that I was like, so Arduino has $54 million in funding, according to Crunchbase, which is probably accurate. I said, hey, is this accurate? And Arduino has released a whopping one open source hardware product in 2024. To give them a little bit more credit, that one product has 7 little breakout boards in it. So, okay, 7. But what's true is there's less open source hardware coming out since they've taken on more and more funding. So that is a true thing. Does it matter? No. Maybe it matters to Arduino. Maybe it matters to the community. Does it matter to us? No. But it is me observing and writing about this. There is an arc to this story. So as of right now, I do think Arduino should do a code audit. If there's that many people who download the IDE all the time, and this stuff can be in there, and it's all the wrong license with credit removed, and maybe they did a bunch of work and they rewrote all the code. Great. Doesn't look like they did, by the way. You can look at like the code analyzers and they're like, oh, the variable names are changed and it's identical except for the names. This happens to you quite a bit. They'll do a find and replace.
I know.
This was like, instead of it saying Adafruit underscore GPS, it says iArduino underscore GPS.
Dude, story of my life.
Yeah. So the thing is, if you're doing this, I think maybe they had a staff change and maybe they didn't notice this. But the first thing I did is like, who's iArduino?
I will say that one thing that's interesting is, this is a consequence of a good decision, maybe, which is that it's now automatic to get libraries added to library manager, which I think is a good idea, but it means that there's nobody watching.
So they do have staff. They have $54 million.
Yeah.
So this is like my gripe is like if you get all these resources, you have to do a little bit of due diligence. And if you're going to release less open source hardware, that's fine. If you're going to have the community do open source and you're not making sure it's open source and you do control you can have this not in the library manager. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You can say like this didn't work out. I don't think it's on me or you to start sending GitHub a bunch of DMCA's because of iArduino. And maybe like maybe this is all legit and they're just trying to like build something in Russia because it's very difficult probably to do a bunch of electronics there over the last few years with sanctions and wars and like who knows. But obviously this has to be corrected. So that's my article. I am not going to lift up this rock anymore because I don't like what I see underneath it. And that's the latest in the Arduino story that I've been following for 20
See you
years.
next year.
Yeah, maybe. So let's go to other open source hardware news. Speaking of open source hardware, that's published, that's live, that you can download the files
We
for.
have a lot of guides this week.
We have a lot of guides this week, Ladyada. What's on the big board this week?
Stuff. Okay, one, Brent finished the no-code offline data logger for Whippersnapper, which is totally awesome. I want people to check it out. It is beta, but it does work. So Whippersnappers are no-code online configuration for doing data capture to Adafruit.io. But maybe you're like, I don't want my data to go to the cloud. There's now basically Whippersnapper offline mode, which means that you load this firmware that you don't have to compile. Like we can pre-compile it for you. You load a file onto your microcontroller by dragging and dropping it. And then you set up a configuration file and it will automatically detect and log that sensor to an SD card for you, which is very cool because a lot of people want to do portable data logging with sensors and they don't want to use a cloud. They want to have it be offline. Maybe they want it solar powered. Maybe they just want their privacy. So check it out. A cool extension of the Whippersnapper capability. Since Whippersnapper is like very JSON based, basically we just took that and made it local. I don't say just, it sounds like it was trivial. It took many, many months. Brent did a good job. Go check it out. Next, Liz did this amazing portable macro data refinement terminal, also like a prop from the Severance universe. A lot of people have made the macro data terminal like the full sized ones, but she wanted to make like a version where it's like, oh, maybe you want to like, I don't know, work from a different floor. Like you want to go to the waffle floor. I don't know. That I haven't watched the show. You're maybe at the party floor where there's the balloons. There's like a dance party and you want to be working on your Cold Harbor refinement. Now you can take it on the go. It's battery powered, runs on a Raspberry Pi 5 with the display, and it has the scroll wheel. And one thing that's cool, because I asked her, like, how do you know what numbers? And she said, oh, you just have a feel for it. So we added a vibration motor. And so when you are close to the numbers that are like the good numbers or the bad numbers, I don't know the difference. The device vibrates lightly, so
Okay.
you have this feeling of the numbers. Anyways, please check it out. So we'll be doing a video next week.
Okay.
When her Innie comes back to work. Okay, next up. Wait, don't go back up. Go back up.
Go back up.
This week's 3D Hangout project is also amazing. A 16 by 16 NeoPixel grid with really cool pixelated effect using WLED and sparkle motion. And like totally rocked out and did two guides for the Metro RP2350 with the DVI output. One is this really beautiful matrix effect using the text terminal mode. It's like 720p and it's got like this beautiful font. And then also a breakout game using CircuitPython and a keyboard. So you can use a keyboard to play, like you can actually play a standalone game with a keyboard and an HDMI monitor. And then we got the WLED guide from Erin. I don't know if that was this week, but I think it was. So setting up our LED nets with WLED and X lights, which gives you like a lot of control and power over sequencing and mapping. I'd like the learning curve is like a cliff, but Erin will take you through it. Once you get it set up, it's perfect, but it takes like, you have to do the exact right commands in the exact right order. And it's like absolutely a journey. And then also this cool compass project from Tim using our round displays.
Yeah. And we have a little video of like a little breakout game and stuff like that. And then don't forget over on Playgrounds, there's new stuff every week as well. Here is the digital clock with Wi-Fi and Huzzah and the OLED. There's the Zephyr Quest. This is with the Feather. And then there's filtering large JSON datas.
Yeah.
This is important because those can be pretty big and more. So do check these out. This is where you, yes, you can post these up, be featured, be on our show and tell them more. And you don't need to log in
No
to
logging
view
in.
the different pages.
No ads.
No ads.
This is, we don't even have an ad block around
No-
here. This
no-
is what it looks
No
like.
tracking.
We
So
will not sell you out.
yeah,
We just want the best place for you.
we're leaving the money on the table, as they say. But I think you make it up long term by not enshittifying. That's the term that is the.
I am de-shitifying.
Yeah, there has to be one place on the web where everything's good.
Yeah.
We're trying.
I'm trying.
Like there's everywhere else, and then there's here. We're trying hard.
Yeah.
See how it works out.
It's working out great.
Okay, let's do some 3D printing. Okay, we're gonna play 2 videos back to back, 3D printing, and then I'm gonna play just a snippet of rapid render because we have so much to do in this show this week. Take it away, Dumpin.
You can build a square pixel LED display with Adafruit Sparkle Motion and WLED. This project uses the Sparkle Motion board to drive 256 NeoPixel LEDs. It features the WLED software to display awesome LED animations that can be customized using a computer or mobile device. This 16 by 16 NeoPixel matrix has a piece of black LED acrylic layered over the panel to soften the LEDs. A 3D printed grid isolates each LED and creates separation between the lights, making a square pixel effect. We designed and 3D printed the frame to house the parts together, making a display that can sit upright or mounted to your wall. It's easy to install WLED. We can start by downloading the firmware from the Adafruit Learn system. We can install the firmware using the Adafruit ESP tool website. Just plug in the board using a USB data cable and connect over serial USB. Once connected, choose the special LED bin file we downloaded from the Learn guide and write it to the board. You can check out the progress bar or the serial monitor during the installation. The Sparkle Motion will create a Wi-Fi hotspot that you can connect to using a computer or mobile device. A welcome screen pops up letting you add your Wi-Fi credentials so you can connect WLED to your Wi-Fi network. Scroll down to the MDNS section where you can create a custom URL for your WLED board. Once you're done, click Save and Connect. Now we can hop back onto our Wi-Fi network and go to the WLED URL to launch the interface. To configure the matrix, click on the gear icon in the top menu and then click on LED Preferences. Under the LED outputs, we'll double check our LED driver type. You'll want to update the length and change the GPIO pin. Be sure to click Save when you're all set. Back in the config menu, click on 2D configuration. In the stripper panel dropdown, select 2D matrix. For the LED panel layout, we'll choose bottom right for the first LED. We'll use horizontal for the orientation and enable the serpentine checkbox. Then update the dimensions to 16 by 16. Lastly, click Save and close out the config menu to return to the main interface. Under the Effects tab, you can click on the search box and then click the matrix icon to show only 2D animations. Each animation can be customized using the sliders and color palettes to make the effects look awesome on the display. We hope this inspires you to check out Sparkle Motion and WLED for your next project.
All right, and then Rapid Render is our new segment where we look at all sorts of automation tools, including AI tools that'll help you make 3D models better, faster, easier, including a lot of like hardware scanners and stuff like that. So I'm just going to play like the first 30 seconds just to give you a taste, dip your toes, your 3D printed toes in, and then we're going to move on to Ion API.
All right, welcome to another Rapid Render. This week, we're going to be taking a look at Hyper3D's Rodin. So if you type in a text, it'll try to match in something that is modeled. So we brought in our little Adabot. This is the Lego one. So it creates a little voxel out of it, and then it allows you to input a text. Does anybody in the audience or Noah, do you have any suggestions for how to combine Adabot with something else?
I wish
Once that I tried it Veiled or like Adabot Armor.
Okay, watch the full thing on our YouTube channel, wherever we post videos, which is everywhere in the Okay, code is PSRAM. Don't forget, you get 10% off the Adafruit store. There are free things that you can get.
Free baby.
When you purchase, and you also get 10% off. But let's do some Ion API.
On MPI.
Hi, on MPI, brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. Thank you so much, DigiKey. This week it is ISSI. Ladyada, what is new product introduction of the week this week?
Okay, this week we're talking about ISSI, or I'm going to call them ISSI. I don't know if that's okay. But we're between friends, okay?
ISSI.
Between-
That sounds good. ISSI.
ISSI's new upcoming 8-pin, like SPI or QSPI NAND flash chips, which I didn't know even existed. So I'm kind of excited. I'm actually going to pick up some of these when they are in stock. So what are these? These are NAND flash chips that are 1 or 2 gigabit. So it's 128 and 256. As you divide by 8, because there's 8 bits per byte. They are NAND flash, which we'll talk about. But what's really nice is they come in 8-pin packages, or they come in a BGA package if you want like a much smaller, like BGA package. But they come in a simple WSON 8-pin package that you can really easily integrate with your microcontroller, and you don't need like a massive number of pins. You don't necessarily need a big NAND management controller. They even have ECC built in. They come in 2 variants. I think one was 60K, and one with 100K writes per. 1.8 volt and 3.3 volt. Let's talk about why you would want NAND flash, because it's like there's a new product, but I was like, I gotta describe why you
I want it. I just don't know why.
Right. So to start with, if you just need to store a little bit of configuration data in non-volatile memory external to your microcontroller. So your microcontroller has flash and it has RAM. Like 99% of your microcontrollers have a non-volatile flash memory that's programmed either by USB or an external programmer, and then there's RAM. But if you want to store configuration data, you don't want to store it to the internal flash memory. It's kind of, you can do it, but it's kind of passe. You want to store it in something external that doesn't, so you don't end up overwriting your program. So EEPROMs are a great way to do this. These are I2C, or you can also get them in SPI. They're good up to like 32K, 64K, something like that. They're inexpensive. What's cool about them is you can read and write to a single byte at a time. So it's very good for configuration setups. You can't write to them very quickly, so they're not good for like big data logs. But if you're like, oh, I want to write MAC addresses, crypto keys that don't have to be secure, settings, whatever, EEPROMs are great for that. But like I said, they're really small. And so if you need a little bit more storage, a lot of people go with something called SPI flash. So this is NOR flash. And the NOR really is like a NOR gate. And I'll show you kind of why it's called a NOR gate. And these are really popular. In fact, we use them in like every CircuitPython board pretty much. And a lot of Arduino boards that, the new product of this week, the Metro RP2350 has NOR flash. NOR flash is great because it gets much, much bigger than EEPROM. You can actually turns out you can get 256 kilobyte flash. Although to be honest, the most common sizes are like half a meg to maybe like 8 MB, 16 megabytes. They're 8-pin. They come in various packages, various sizes. Their ISI has tons of them available, and they're not too expensive. So, that EEPROM that I just showed, maybe a couple kilobytes is like 50 cents. Well, now for that 50 cents, you get 2 MB. So they're a little bit more complicated. One of the things that makes it more complicated is you have to write a page at a time, and a page is 256 bytes. It can vary. Sometimes it's a little bit more than 256. You can't write one byte at a time. So if you want to change something, you have to like erase a section. Like you have to read it in, change the stuff you want to change, and then write it back out in like one big chunk. So it's like you have to do a little bit of work and thinking about how you want to manage your data rights. And a page is 256 bytes, but if you want to erase, you have to erase by the sector, and the sector is 4K. So you have to have a cache of 4K. Whatever. Like there's a lot of, we have an Arduino library, CircuitPython library that kind of manages this for you. It transparently handles like caching and writing and reading and all that. But the good news is you can still read 1 byte at a time. And that's because it's structured in this way. It's kind of this flat shape, and each one of these transistor gates, the transistor, like the capacitor on the gate, holds the bit. It's a little more complicated than that, but let's just simplify it. And you can address each byte or bit individually. You have to write them in a big chunk, but like you can what we call execute in place. So on the RP2040, for example, the RP2350, and even the ESP32 series, flash memory is used for the program, and you program this flash memory chip, but then you can read it instantaneously, like within one SPI read or QSPI read. So it's very, very fast for random access. The problem is they get very expensive once you get to like larger sizes. After 2 MB, to be honest, it kind of gets into the multiple dollars. And then you're like, why am I spending $10 on, 128 megabytes of memory when I can get 15 gigabyte, 16 gigabyte SD cards for the same price? And those USB keys, the reason that those can be cheap, like why can I get a 16 gig SD card for like, $4 or $5, is they use NAND flash. And NAND flash uses these strings of data instead of having them be one by one, that all the transistors in a row. There's pros and cons for this. But NAND flash chips are very high density, like they're super packed because of this vertical structure. You can put the strands right next to each other. You can put a lot more in. And so that's why NAND flash is used for most non-volatile storage. That, like, here's an image from Bunny of like this factory, he took some videos and photos from like 10 years ago of a NAND factory where they have a controller chip that does the USB part, and then this is the USB key, and then it has like, 1 or 2 megabytes, 1 or 2 gigabytes of storage. Now, I always thought that like those bonded NANDs, that it's like when people talk about like NAND flash, I was like, oh, you need like this standard 48 TSOP size, and you need an 8 or 16-bit controller and an address lines and data lines, and it's like it's a whole thing. You need to use a lot of pins, and you usually need a controller. And so I never actually really used it. Although, like I said, this comparatively price-wise, you're going to get a lot more memory storage for NAND than for NOR, which is why I'm excited that these ISI flash memories, 1 or 2 gigabit, you can get them in like a WSON that is the same size and pinout as like your standard SPI flash memory. They also have a BGA version. It still uses the same interface. It's just like you want BGA because, I don't know, maybe you want to have it smaller. Maybe you already have a 4-6 layer board and you can do buried vias and it's no big deal. You want less pins. I don't know. Go to town. But there's downsides. So, much like NOR flash is a little tougher to use than EEPROM because you have to deal with the pages and sectors and blocks, NAND flash is even more complicated because, unlike NOR flash, you can't do instantaneous reads anywhere in the memory, which means you can't use it for execute in place. It's great for very large amounts of data, but you have to read whole blocks at a time, and the blocks are big. They're like 2,192 bytes per page. Some of those are used for error correction. That's why it's more than 2,048. You read the page at a time, and then you can, from the cache, the cached page, you can like individually get the bytes out. And then, of course, when you're writing, you also have to do the erase. So now we're talking about like a fairly advanced way of addressing data. You have to have like this cache. You have to read, and you have to know where you're reading, and like you want to, to simplify, because you can't just like instantaneously get one byte. If you want a bunch of data, you want to kind of think ahead about how your data is stored so you can read one page and get everything you need. So putting stuff on page boundaries is a good idea. The other issue is, yes, this is about the cache. Also, if you want to write, of course, you have to program like this page, 200 and whatever, 2,000 whatever bytes, and then write all one. And this is like a lot of data, like 2K of data at a time is quite a bit. But there's another thing you have to deal with when you're reading data. Now, your reading data doesn't, you can read data as much as you want. It doesn't cause any wear like writing does. But because of the format of the NAND, the way it's packed in so tightly, there are way more errors that occur, like bit flips that occur with NAND than with NOR. With NOR, you pretty much are good to go. Like it doesn't really, like once the data is written, it's good for many, many years. With NAND, as you read and as you write, like because all these capacitors are so close, it's very easy for bits to get flipped. And so you have to have error correction. There is some built-in error correction in ISI. I think it's up to 8 bits. You can see the ECC status flag. For the last read, then you want to read the ECC status. It'll tell you. If you have only like 1 or 2 bits, it's like, well, I can error correct, no problem. But as you get closer to 8 bits, which is the limit, you're going to have to refresh the data. And again, when you refresh the data, that counts as a write. And so you're going to have to do, even if you're just reading a lot of data, you're probably going to have to refresh that area around where you're reading. And so those count at writes. And so you're probably going to have to do wear leveling. You can kind of sort of maybe get away with not wear leveling on a NOR. You can use little FFs or whatever. You definitely have to think about it with NAND. And so that's there's a lot of controllers for USB keys and SDIO controllers for micro SD cards that do the wear leveling for you. These chips do not do wear leveling automatically. You will have to manage that on your own. So think about that. It's a trade-off for getting massive amounts of storage for low prices. Lots of varieties available. There's even a 16 SOIC version, 3.3 volts, 1.8 volts. Each of them support SPI, dual SPI, or QSPI, which is great. Of course, if you need huge bandwidth, go for those 48 TSOPs. Those are also available. You can get 8-bit, 4-bit, 16, whatever bus widths to your heart's content. These chips are coming soon. They're going to be in stock in about a month. Sign up to be notified, and you can add a lot of memory for like $3. Way, way cheaper than NOR flash, and definitely easier than maybe even an SD card, because you don't have to worry about the vibration. You don't have to worry about it getting removed. You have direct access to this memory.
Alrighty, and that is this week's Eye on NPI.
Eye on NPI.
I think you should save 10% off. Go to PS RAM, free stuff.
Free stuff. 10% off all the products that are in, like almost everything is in stock right now.
Okay, let's do some new products.
Okay. New.
All right, first up,
New. Yes.
in new products, we've got a ton of letters.
Okay, we did not put in 26 images
I didn't want to do that.
because I think
We also we ran out of time today.
we skipped the news. We're gonna do that next week. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, no, we did those last week.
No, not those long ones. There's more.
Oh, really? Okay. So anyways,
We already have like 50 new products.
The way that we did this was we put these in, and you could spell new and stuff like that, but you could see all of them, A through Z. Let me just say something real fast, because people have emailed.
They're like, where's the numbers?
And they've zooted and zorted and blue
Too
skied and
What are blue sky things
flapping
called?
flappers. What are blue zeets?
It's
Clouds.
clouds.
But this is we made a video.
So yeah, so this is a video I did as a demo just to show you about the size of them. You can see my hand.
Yeah.
They light up. They are basically LEDs that are 3 volts, 50 milliamps. So you can do them in series, one after the other, and then you just need to add 3 volts, 3 volts, 3 volts, and then add a resistor to just because there's some variation. So if you have 12 volts, you can then have 4 letters for your favorite 4-letter word. And then you just need a resistor just to keep the current from getting too high. Because like I said, they're just resistors. Or if you want them in parallel, treat them in parallel. Each one is approximately 3 volts. I'll just show the back. So it is a non-flexible PCB. It's a very thin PCB, so there is some lighting from the back, but they definitely look best from the front. So you can, you can't see them from the back, but then the letters
Yeah,
are
look great.
backwards anyways. They look great. We'll be getting numbers soon.
Yeah. And the other thing is, let me just go back here. So we also had, you mentioned we had these longer nudes.
Yes,
So these are longer versions of what we showed.
300 millimeter long nudes. They're single ended, 3 volts. So
We got a cool store. This is a cool store.
This is a cool.
This is a cool store.
This is a cyberpunk future that you've.
Yeah, this is a cool store.
There's actually a lot of glowy stuff this week.
This is nice. Okay, let's just keep moving along here.
Single-ended nudes,
yeah.
double-ended, single-ended.
Okay, then there's this.
Next, by customer request, and it's such a brilliant idea. So we had these white LED backlights that were from TFTs. And what's funny is that I don't know if you remember, but when we went to Burning Man, we made little like necklaces out of these to like so that people wouldn't run us over. I don't know if you remember, but we got like LED backlights. I got them from like MPRJ, MPJRC, or I don't know the name of it. I think they went out of business. Anyways, these are just the backlights, RGB backlights that would go to an RGB TFT. So like a 20x4 or a 2x16 or whatever.
That's cool.
They're just RGB LEDs, but they have this amazing diffuser. So they have a very smooth
It looks
color.
like what you want an EL panel to be.
It's exactly.
But it's not squealy.
But it doesn't squeak. And you could cut it, but it's a little messy.
Like a dolphin.
Okay. So just to show you, like there is a little bit of, there's a little hot spot. It's actually not as noticeable in person.
In person, you can't see it, but on a
It's on a camera. But the color, other than this tiny little spot, is like totally even and smooth. And there's a little protector on it. I'll say the back doesn't look so good because you can see the little diffuser. But they're just like super cool. So one tip I try to tell people, you can mask this. So you can cut vinyl, like black vinyl, and put it on top.
This one.
And then like to make a design. So like I wouldn't cut it, but you can mask it with something that doesn't let light through.
Yeah.
So like thick, like electrical tape or
and this
plastic.
Like when they're not on.
Yeah. And they're just RGB LEDs.
By the way, if you look at the quarters that we use to show sizes, sorry everybody not in the US, but you kind of know what a quarter is. We had to pick something. And this is something, and it's interesting because now there's all sorts of celebrating women in science and more. And this is Vera Rubin, who is now being credited for theorizing dark matter, which may or may not be real. No one knows what most of the universe is made out of, but super cool. And Vera Rubin is now someone that people know who she is, and it's now on the back of the quarters. That's what that is. And it says dark matter on the back of a quarter. That's cool. And we use that for our photos. Anywho, little side note here. So this is what they look like.
Very cool.
Pretty cool.
Okay, next. We have a bunch of variants. This week is a variant week. So a lot of people ask, like, oh, can you make this, but do like something slightly different? And I kind of put it off. And then this week I sort of just did them all. Sure. So this is a Max 3243, like a full, all bits, all 8-bit RS-232 level shifter converter from 3 to 5 volts up to like plus minus whatever 6-10 volts. And I had this with the DE9F, the female, the socket version. Now we have it with the DE9M, the male pin version. Apparently some people are like, I don't want to use a little like connector changer thingy. I just want to use this. So now we have this. Congratulations. It's a variant, same price. So you don't have to use a converter or cable.
Okay.
Next up, we have a
Okay.
version of the temperature humidity Trinky, which people really like. It had the SHG45. By request, we now have a version with the PTFE filter. It's like a little white dot in the center. You can barely see it. It is $1 more-ish because the filter makes it more expensive. But if you want it to be last a little bit longer from like dirt or oil or whatever dust in the area, the SHG45 with PTFE works exactly the same, but it has a filter built in. Next, we put in the DAC 7578 like a week or two ago, 12-bit DAC. It's a little pricey. Look, it's what it is. It's a really great analog devices chip. Sorry, TI chip. Don't sue me, ADI. But now we have it with the 10-bit version, which is a lot more affordable. And for many use cases, 10-bit is perfectly fine. 12-bit is actually when DACs get a little bit expensive. I2C control, 8 outputs. You can use, pretty high speed I2C. It's kind of one of the only 8 output DACs. So you can do a full octave of voltage control.
Okay. And then last up, the star of the show besides you, Ladyada, our team, the community publishing open source software and hardware with licenses and not taking people's names off and doing weird stuff, is the Metro. And every time we launch a new Metro, I play this like little montage of New York City and our Metro line. So here it is, and then we're going to jump right into the Metro product. It's here.
Okay, so the RP2350 Metro, which we actually just got some more in stock. People love it. It's got like everything. It's got your Arduino compatible layout for using shields. It's got a buck converter. It can do like, 12, 6 or 12 volt, 20 volts in, down to, 5 volts. It's got USB serial. It's got HSTX output for doing DVI and video. We have a bunch of tutorials on that. It's got a micro SD card. It's got STEM QT. It's got boot button. It's got debug port. So much stuff. Another USB pinout for USB host. Now it's also coming with PS RAM. So 8 megabytes of PS RAM, 60 megabytes of flash. So if you're doing projects that you need like a lot of storage, both program and RAM, what's neat is Arduino and Pico SDK and CircuitPython all pretty much automatically can detect the PS RAM. And then in Pico SDK and Arduino, I think you have to use a special command to allocate the large buffer you want. On the PS RAM and CircuitPython, I'll just kind of magically do the right thing. It's a little slower than the built-in SRAM, but for a lot of use cases where you're just like, look, I need a gigantic buffer. I want to, like we're doing an emulator project and we're like, we want to put the ROM, like the Game Boy ROM in PS RAM. So you can have instant access because you can have fast writes, fast reads. The PS RAM, don't forget, it's volatile. So when you reboot, it's gone. But still, PS RAM is awesome, and 8 megabytes will definitely get your project going.
New York's hottest
Super
club,
powerful.
the Metro RP2350. This place has everything.
Get on the train.
We got Eskimos on snowboards.
Choo choo.
Okay, that's
That's
new
it.
products.
New.
Okay, if you have questions, put them up in the Discord chat. We're going to start doing some top secret, then get questions, then get out of here.
I know.
Okay, for top secret, we're going to play a video, and then we're going to talk about some stuff. So here's the first video, and then we're going to talk about some vibe coding.
Hi, Jeff here, just working on the Fruit Jam, and I'm working on getting an emulator called MCU-ME working. This is the Commodore 64 emulator. And I don't have the keyboard hooked up yet, but I do have a button that will type in a short basic program. This is the famous GoTo10 program that uses the graphical character set of the Commodore 64 to print an infinite maze. It turns out that the character codes 205 and 206 are the two alternating diagonal characters, and this just prints them forever in a loop. So that's what's going on with the Fruit Jam and emulation.
Okay, that's the wrong one. So in the news, you heard about vibe coding, about how people are making apps and stuff using these AI tools. We have a little bit of video that we thought we could explain how Ladyada is using it. So here's a little bit. It's 3 minutes, a little bit longer than our usual short videos, but I think you'll get an idea of how
There's a lot of vibes.
a person who writes software and develops hardware professionally is using some of these tools.
All right, Ladyada, what is this?
Hey, we're just like vibing here. We're vibing, we're chilling.
Ooh.
And listen to the Adafruit SoundCloud. Check it out for some cool sounds to vibe code to. I'm writing a driver for the uBlocks SAM M8Q. It's a really great GPS receiver. It's got a built-in antenna, easy to use, and it's got both UART and I2C. And one thing that's interesting about it is not only does it give you your standard NMEA data, which you can actually see piping out of here, just making sure it's still alive, but also has this thing called UBX, which is like a compressed format of receiving and sending data that first off can get you much faster update rates, like 10 hertz easily over, UART, I2C, or SPI. Also can do much more advanced configuration and like grabbing data from the GPS, like much more than just what the standard NMEA stuff can do. And it's like many protocols, it's just a total pain in the ass to code for. I mean, there's just like hundreds of commands and like dozens and dozens of bit fields for each one. This is exactly the kind of stuff that I would hate to write by hand. It would just take like years. Instead, we're vibe coding it with Claude 3.7 Sonnet, which I'm loving. It's just within an hour. I already got it doing the DDC, which is I2C interface, setting up a stream interface for it, and then checking the I2C, reading NMEA data, and also be able to send and receive UBX data. So the first UBX command I'm sending is just to set it into UBX mode, right? Because like you send that first packet to tell it, hey, I want to get this compressed data back. And it did a really good job. I'm liking Claude 3.7. It's like I've used Claude 3.5 for a while. 3.7 is looking really good. One thing I really like is I was like, well, I want to deal with these messages and I want a timeout and I want it to return, a type def enum for the different things, like whether it failed to send the message, whether it got a NAC back, whether it got an ACK back, and also adding like verbose debug output. So let's see over here. I've got I have like a Metro Mini. I have to quickly update this chip because this chip is running out of RAM immediately because there's so much going on. And it didn't get that NMEA data because it's already in UBX mode, but you can see it received and transmitted a proper UBX packet to set the mode and even got the reply and like kind of printed out the success. And this is all vibe coding. All I had to do is it made a couple mistakes. It like accidentally set the I2C address to 0. It didn't understand something about the stream hardware interface, but for the most part, like this only took about an hour to get going. So soon I'll be able to get like all the data from this uBlock sensor, and then I can also expand it to cover other sensors like the M10, maybe some RTK modules. We'll see. I'm just vibing here.
Yeah.
Loving it.
Ooh.
Thanks, Claude.
All right, and then for this one, Anne let us see this in our internal chat system here at Adafruit as Anne was working on it, and it's a MS-DOS on Fruit Jam, and then it loads a game, which is pretty incredible. So
yeah, it works. She's going to work on getting the USB going, the USB keyboard, because it's like not quite working. What's cool is on the file system, she's put an autoexec.bat to play a video game.
Yeah, it's cool.
And it plays Rogue. And I was actually looking, you can apparently play Prince of Persia on the 8086. The 8088 is what you need for King's Quest, I believe.
Okay. And then you have some new stuff here.
Okay.
What's this?
So I did the PCM 5102 and the 5100 I2S DAX. And then I was like, well, what if we want something slightly nicer than that? This is the PCM 5122, which is like the update. What's nice about this one, it has hardware and I2C and SPI controls. So by default, you can pipe I2S into it. It'll just work, and you can set the gain with pins. But if you want more advanced control, you can connect to the I2C or SPI port, which I think kind of makes it like the best of all worlds.
Okay. What are these?
This is a triple output bonnet. So we're working on adding more support to the Raspberry Pi 5 PIO proto matter library to support 3 strands of RGB matrices. So you should be able to get 3 times the bandwidth, especially for big display setups.
Okay. And that is top secret.
Beep, 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 beep. Okay.
Don't forget, code PSRAM. Let's do some questions.
Questions.
Up.
Speed round.
Okay, here we go. How do you decide which ohm amount to use for picking resistor?
We have a guide for that called All About LEDs on the Adafruit Learning System.
Next up, thank you for the video. What exactly is the receiving element for GPS?
The antenna is that like silver and brown thing, and underneath it is the radio receiver.
Next up for next week, would Adafruit consider QT Pi BFF Proto like the 2284 for Feather, especially useful for a compact and solid project since there's no mounting hole on the QT Pi?
We will add that to the list.
Okay, next up, I have a pretty simple setup of Feather powering but NeoPixel. I'm trying to inject power midway through using multiple USB power banks using part number 4090. But for some reason, instead of drawing power from the second USB power bank, it's charging it. Any thought on how to fix it so both power banks are supplying power?
Make sure that you don't have like the 5 volts crossed. Like you should definitely, like if you're injecting power midway, you need to cut it so that the 5 volts from one power bank is connected to the other one.
Okay. Next up, can you customize vendor ID product data such as Adafruit boards?
You can, but what you're going to have to do is go into the SDK like Arduino and like edit the boards.txt file.
Yeah. Next up, another question. Is there more ways to communicate with Adafruit boards via USB without using serial communication COM port?
Yes, you can use HID if you like. That's a common low-level way. It's not going to be as easy. You can also use MIDI. You can use mass storage to send files back and forth.
Okay. The problem is which fuse is best for equipment. I don't know which to buy.
You know what? On most equipment, it's going to say on the back what size fuse you want. Get that. And if not, I would actually contact the company. They will tell you which fuse to get.
I'm going to give y'all a pro tip. So these new tools that are forced on our phones, these AI things, some people don't like them. But if you look close, once in a while, there's some features that might be something that is useful. So you could take a picture of something with ChatGPT and say, what is this?
There's also sometimes on the fuse it's written.
Yeah, but if you're looking, but if you just have like some equipment, you're not even sure, it will go through an image search and try to find something. And then, so I've found stuff from taking a photo and it's like, this is what it is. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Clothing, obviously, if the tags come off something, it'll find the make and style of things, but that might be something to look for too. Take a lot of photos and say, can you help me find what fuse this is? And it might be able to find the product, and then it'll go to a page somewhere and it'll say like, this is the fuse.
Also check Internet Archive that has manuals. And the manual definitely will tell you what fuse to get.
Follow-up question from what you were showing before. Can the chip detect GPS spoofing?
Yes, it has some GPS spoofing detection. No, sorry. It can detect GPS jamming. It may be able to detect spoofing, but it depends on how good the spoofing is.
You don't know this yet, but I'm going to tell you now. So the EFF just launched this thing that you can put a custom firmware on an Orbit Verizon hotspot, and it'll let you know what or where or if there's cellular surveillance in the area. It's a cool thing.
I was looking for like weird.
You take an off-the-shelf thing, add this new firmware, and it'll detect if there's cellular.
Yeah, it's like an IMSI catcher.
It's cool. So I need to, so we're going to big one.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I actually have a hotspot that
we're going to get one when she comes over.
I think so. Okay. Anyways, we'll let you know if this works out. But it's cool. I saw this too. I was like, this is cool.
That's cool.
EFF is doing cool stuff. Okay, let's go to the rest of the questions. Would those backlights that look cool? Yes, I agree. Would they go into a 16:2 LCD?
You could, but you should probably just get an RGB LCD. They exist, and it already has it in it because the PCB has to support RGB backlights.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, is the Sparkle Motion fixed now?
No.
Okay.
If it's in, you'll know because it'll be in stock.
Okay.
So sign up.
And then folks answered this in the chat and everything. They said, "What is uBlock's
It's a
And-
company that they make radios
Yeah.
of various types,
Yeah.
GPS units,
And then let's see if there's any
Wi-Fi
questions
modules.
here. What is
Modules,
that thing?
modules.
Okay, that's a question. And I think we got
That's it.
to
We're done.
all of it.
Bye.
We did.
Cool.
Okay. That is it.
Bye.
Yeah, I got to go back to here.
wait.
Okay, everybody,
Bye.
this is the show. Thank you. The code is PSRAM.
Please support us by picking something up,
Yeah.
getting money off.
As you heard, we're giving away everything constantly just to keep the name and credit
And
on it.
like,
And just buy
I
something
don't
and store
know
with
what's
someone.
gonna happen. This economy is like super messed up right now.
Super weird. But we're going to keep making things, sharing. We're going to keep doing open source. We're going to keep doing the best thing, being a good cause, good business. We will see everybody later. This was an Adafruit production. Here is your moment of Zener.
Good night, everybody.